What's going on, everybody? It is Chris Aiken from Aftershocks, and just wanted to remind you before we give you this next great interview that you should be subscribed to the CMS Podcast Network, cmspn.com. That is the web address. You can watch, you can listen, you can subscribe. Everything you need to do to catch not only this episode, but everything that we've done in the past. It's all over there on the CMS Podcast Network, as well as great shows from the Classic Metal Show, Shockwave Skull Sessions, Talk to Me, and of course, Aftershocks TV. So sign up today and you will never be without entertainment again. All right, enough of this. Let me give you the interview you came here to see.
All right, awesome. Here we go. All right, welcome to another episode of Aftershocks at AfterShocksTV.com on the CMS Podcast Network. And joining us today, we got a veteran guitarist in the world of metal who many of you will know from his Boston power thrash metal outfit, Meliah Rage. And he's here today to talk about his other band, Mexican Ape Lord, and their new release, Survival Cannibalism, Mr. Tony Nichols. Tony, thanks for coming on. How you doing, bud? Thanks for having me. All good here. All right, awesome, man. Well, let's talk about the new record, man. What an awesome record this is, man. We're both loving this record, man. And compared to the first record that you put out a few years back, definitely some changes, I think, on this record. I mean, the vocals to me sound a bit more highlighted, a little more up front than they were, I think, on the last release. And your guitar sound, too, is a bit more balanced, I think, in the overall, mix of things compared to what we're used to hearing from you and, with Meliah Rage, where everyone's kind of, all the fans are usually anticipating those money riffs that you have coming in, but this one's a little more, I think, a little more blended, which I think, definitely benefits the songs and the album, because I think, with this album, you got to really pay attention to detail because of the lyrical content. And so I think by doing that, people can really hone in on, the whole concept of the record itself. So, I mean, was that something you guys were looking to do on the new record when it came to the mix and the mastering of it?
Well, I think you're spot on everything you just said, because the first record, it's primarily me playing guitar, and Dan came in and ripped out some solos. And the first record, I think, is a heavier rhythm mix.
Yeah.
And this record, we wanted to use Dan more because Dan is a talented guitar player. And I think we're more familiar with each other, too. And the first record was just me saying, hey, guys, let's do something with these songs, these loud metal riffs. And that's what it ended up being. Now, 6 years later, everybody kind of knows how to work with each other a little bit better. And we really wanted to focus on using Dan on a creative side more than just shredding some leads, which he can certainly shred. And add some sounds. And I said, Dan, try, everybody knows you can play fast. Let's try some, unique sounds to get more of an artistic sounding record. And John spent some time with it, more time. And I think he's more comfortable with it. And Pete, the mixer, spent more time with it. And it's a fuller sounding record, probably more pleasant to the ears to the average person. If you know what I'm saying.
Are you saying that it's unpleasant to your ears?
Well, no, not at all. But, some guys want everything completely brutal metal. And this one's probably a little, like you say, a little more together on a mix where everything, a lot more blending going on, different sounds.
Sure.
I don't know. It's a different record, but it's still Mexican Ape Lord. It still has John's very unique lyrics, obviously.
Sure, yeah. No, absolutely. My two favorite songs off the record are, The Devil Does Divide Us and No Deliverance. Those are just phenomenal tracks, I think, man. And I think one of the reasons why I really like those tracks, too, is you got the gang vocals on those, too. They're a little more heavily present on this record, I think, too, than the last record. And I think by adding that extra element, I think it really highlights the darkness and sort of the despair of what the lyrics represent. I mean, what made you sort of decide to add those extra, background vocals? Because I think, in my opinion, I think it was a great move, and it gives it sort of like almost like a little bit of a gothic-y type of feel to it.
Well, that's really on John, because, we don't record in one studio. We live all over the place. So, my tracks are done here, and John lives 30, 40 miles from me, so he goes to his studio. Dan lives in Florida.
Oh, okay.
And so we're all over the place. But, you know, John will hit his studio, ask me for ideas, and I'll say, you know, maybe I'll say try a gang vocal there. But most of that was him and his producer he worked with. And we gave him credit for the vocal recording and vocal production, even though Pete Ruccio produced the whole record as a whole in the mix, you know, obviously the mixing and the guitars and the drums. But his engineer really had a lot to do with that.
Okay. Awesome. And in terms of the, you know, just sort of the concept of the record, I mean, the video for the song Situation was really cool. I think that really gave, you know, I mean, it's an interesting, you know, concept, the whole Donner Family-esque theme of the record, because I think really too, like I said, in order to understand, I think, and really, you know, maximize the listening experience, I think it's really important that listeners kind of know what the album is about before they give it a real serious, you know, listen. I think really the video gives the listeners such a great idea on what they, you know, what to expect with the record. So who wanted picking up this concept for the record? How did that come about? Because I think it's really interesting, really cool.
That's definitely John. John
okay.
John is his own man when it comes to lyrics. I mean, you know, we put the music together. I put the basic the chords and riffs together. That Steve, the drummer, who's extremely talented, adds so much, and Dan obviously adds so much, but vocals are all John. I mean, you know, you listen to his lyrics and dig deep in, and he comes in with these words like, where did he find that word? And, it's all him, man. Nobody's going to take credit for John's lyrics.
Yeah.
And he lives in Gloucester, so he's you know, he knows the waterfront style in New England, if you know what I'm saying.
Okay, sure. Gotcha.
Definitely. Yeah, you know, Tony, it's interesting. Matt was just saying how his favorite two tracks were The Devil Divides Us and No Deliverance. I just think the whole middle of the record is such a strong place. If, you know, because my favorite track is in between those two with So Much Wasted Rope. And I love that guitar chunk that I guess you're playing, that dun 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 dun. You know, it's like, wow, that is like some compelling playing there, man.
I agree 100% with you guys. The middle of the record is the strong point. So when we put the order of the songs together, John said to me, I want the songs in order musically so I can write this story with the songs. So the order of the songs were done before the lyrics were even done, because he wanted to write a story through them. So, you know, you kind of go with like, all right, this one sounds like it could be an opener musically, and then you go to this one, and then you do the mellower stuff in the middle, and you build up heavier at the end. But The Devil Does Divide Us is my favorite song. I mean, the dynamics on that, it might be the best song I've ever been involved with in 30 years.
Wow.
And like you said, So Much Wasted Rope, that riff, we like it, man. I mean, when I came into the drummer with it, he goes, man, that riff, it's just simple, but it works. I'm with it.
It just sticks in your head. It's that, you know, when I first heard it, then the rest of my day I was like, you know, even when I'm walking around the house, I was hearing it. So, and I would imagine for a musician, that's exactly what you're going for.
That's what we're going for. You know, I like heavy, dark riffs, but catchy. You know,
right?
You see all these bands with all these dark riffs, but then they go to another riff and nothing matches up, and the vocals don't fit the riffs. And you know, I really spend time on dark. It's got to be dark and mean sounding, but it's got to be catchy too. And then gluing it to the next riff that works with that riff. And I spend a lot of time on that, because I think we've all heard those bands that can write a good riff, but the next riff just doesn't go with it, and so on and so on.
Sure, definitely. Yeah. Now, Tony, I want to go backwards in time a little bit. I remember, God, I'm sure you could tell me exactly when it happened, but it's like 2012 or 13 or something that you broke your wrist, and it took you a really long time to, like, longer than most, to recover from it. And I'm curious if when you did that, if you found that it ended up changing the way that you actually play guitar, because it does seem like your sound is a little different since then. Not in a bad way, it just sounds like a somewhat different sounding play, whether it's with Meliah Rage or obviously with Mexican Ape Lord?
Well, guitar sound wise, it's probably because after that break, we started using Pete Rucho as a producer. So he produced the last Meliah Rage record, Idle Hands.
Right.
And he produced both Mexican Ape Lord records. And yes, I slipped on the ice December 16th, 2013. And I went down hard, and I mean hard. And I'm almost 6'3", so I had a long way to go. And I just flew in the air, landed on my wrist, and I just Mike Tyson the ground. And I just shattered the thing. And it took 3 surgeries. Had 13 screws in there, 144 therapy sessions. And for a while, I was ever going to play again. I mean, that was out of the question. I would have been happy just to ride a motorcycle, just to have the motion to pull the brake lever. But
sure,
we worked at it. One thing about being in Boston is you have the best medical in the world. That's not even a question. I had the best surgeon in the world at my disposal, and my therapist works on people with the Boston Symphony Orchestra, and we hit it. We hit it hard, and it took a year and a half. But, we're back.
Oh, good, nice. I'm glad to see you back, man. Obviously, with Mexican Ape Lord, it's obviously much different than Meliah Rage. When you're writing, recording for Mexican Ape Lord, I mean, how difficult is it for a guy like yourself? I mean, you've been playing the guitar the way you do now for, like you said, 30 years or so. I mean, how do you balance the two without it sounding, too much like what you've been doing for the last 30 years? I mean, do you make a conscious, decision or think to sort of separate the two, or do you just kind of, just go with whatever comes to you with this?
It really just goes whatever comes to me. And when you have different singers, different drummers, and different guitar players, you could present the same chord structure to the guys on the left, and then that same chord structure to the guys on the right, and it's going to be a completely different song.
True.
And Meliah Rage has its sound. We did. I think we were pretty consistent in the sound over the years of Meliah Rage. Trying not to veer too far off from what the '80s thrash,
sure,
Megadeth, Metallica, Metal Church thing we were lumped in with. And that's what we were. And Mexican Ape Lord, again, I got more unique guys over there, especially John, the vocalist. John comes from a indie punk background.
Okay.
Played in a band called The Bags, who were actually pretty big in the Boston area. Okay. Did pretty well. I mean, they were featured in Rolling Stone magazine, and I think they were on that Guitar Game. What's that Guitar Game called?
Guitar Hero.
Guitar Hero.
Yeah, Guitar Hero. So they were indie punk metal. And I always said in the back of my head, for the 30 years that, we were in different bands, I'm like, boy, I'd love to play with him because he's so unique. I love his tone. He's got that tone I like. I've always liked that Uriah Hetfield, old Alice Cooper, Danzig, powerful but a little raspy. And we went to high school together. So,
oh, wow, okay.
Known him a long time.
Wow. Very cool. Well, I mean, speaking of that, I mean, it's been, 30 years since you released the classic, Meliah Rage debut, Kill to Survive. And I mean, even though you guys, you have a great loyal following, I really feel that, you were definitely a band that should have been probably mentioned more when talking about some of the classic, thrash bands from the 80s. And I think one of the reasons for that is, in general, people, I think, seem to, especially at that time in a lot of part of the 80s, they seem to equate Boston more with hardcore and punk than they did with metal. I mean, it really wasn't, I think, to the 90s and even the 2000s where Boston and Massachusetts in general became such a hotbed for metal. I mean, how difficult or challenging was it, if at all, when you were trying to break out of a city that wasn't really synonymous, wasn't synonymous with heavy metal at that time, during the mid to late 80s, where people may have been overlooking Boston in general and the metal bands that were coming out of there because of all the strong ties it had to hardcore and punk.
Yeah, the Boston metal scene was late to bloom nationally or internationally. In our heyday from 88 to 92, 93 when we were on Epic, you're right. Boston was more known for hardcore, and I actually did a stint with Gangrene in 1987, filling in for those guys on tour.
Awesome.
And I realized really quick I was into the energy and the the rebellion, but the musicianship was just too limited and too noisy for me. So I started the Meliah Rage, and but you're right. Boston was known for hardcore, and there were two bands, us and Wargasm, that were the big, thrash bands in Boston at the time. We got signed to Epic, and we had a good, healthy start. That 3-month Metal Church tour, MTV, and then we did the live EP and Solitary. But our favorite excuse is grunge killed us, which of course it killed everybody except the biggies. But really what killed us was our own doing, because as soon as we got back from the Metal Church tour in 1989 in the spring, we did 3.5 months straight on the road with them. We got back, we were offered an Exodus tour to go right back out, and we turned it down because one or two of the guys were like a little homesick, and the rest of us like, well, is this what we're going to do or not do? So we turned that down, and I think there was another tour. We turned down something else too, and then we went to Europe the next year. And then when we got back, the writing was on the wall. But things were changing quick with Seattle. And but I think if we'd taken that Exodus tour right after the Metal Church, we would have been to that next point where people really would have lumped us in. We would have been at the level of Death Angel or the second tier band, or even the third tier. The first tier is one band, and we know who they are. And then the second tier, and then the third tier. So we kind of slipped the third tier, I think, just because we didn't take that Exodus tour.
Sure.
But life goes on. And then in 2007, we went back out when metal was booming again. We went with Metal Church again for I think 5 weeks, and we pulled out of the last 3 weeks of that tour because one guy didn't want to keep touring.
Oh man,
a 5-man band is tough. Because you look over the history of rock, 5-man bands are tough to keep together. Because you got 5 different personalities. You go back to Deep Purple, and
true.
It's tough keeping 5 guys all on the same page. And that mega band that we want to mention the name, the biggest band ever, you identify with them because they're basically the same 3 guys plus 1 bass player every 15 years. They keep that unit, that unit, and you look at bands like Anthrax, and they're like, who's on guitar this week? And is Joey in the band or not in the band?
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Metal Church. This is the craziest fact of all. Our first Metal Church tour in 1989. When we went back to the 2007 tour, there was nobody in the band that was the same. 2 different bands.
Wow.
Imagine that.
Wow. Yeah.
That's crazy.
So we always had a rule in Meliah Rage: 3 original guys or nothing. So you don't want to look like one of those bands.
Right. And honestly, that's one of the, if nothing else, that's one of the most admirable things about Meliah Rage, other than the music itself, is the fact that you didn't just kind of run with it and become Tony Nichols, Meliah Rage, or what, as so many bands have done. It's really admirable that you kind of made that pact that if you didn't have the core, you weren't going to do it.
No, I mean, we know the bands, and it's one guy, and it keeps revolving.
Right.
But I definitely do all the music writing, and I pass the music off to the singer and let him do his thing. But to me, the brand's got to have identical faces, and 3 original members or no Meliah Rage record. And it always hasn't been the same 3. It's always been me and Jim, the other guitar player. But it's either been Mike Monroe or Stu, and 3 original members. Like I said, 3 or none. Then it gets silly because again, one guy, and there are plenty of those bands. We all know who they are.
Yeah, you're so right. Well, and Tony, as somebody that is a fan, I have always been really disappointed with the metal community for not. I get it from the early days; they either got it or they didn't. But in these later years, you guys have put out some tremendous music that just most people have just didn't see. The Deep and Dreamless Sleep is my favorite Meliah Rage record of any of them. It's such a good record, and Masquerade was goddamn great too. And it's really annoying that people just didn't grab onto it.
No, it's well, again, that's a lot of that's lack of touring, and that's our biggest problem. Is back then we had a couple of homesick boys, and now everybody's in their 50s, and everybody's got mortgages, and some people have kids, and it's just tough to get out. And but you're right, man. I mean, the Deep and Dream of Sleep, the remix. I don't know if you have the remix version. I can't even think of the label. We have so many labels now, I can't keep track of them. Dive Bomb Records reissued Barely Human, and the Deep and Dream of Sleep, and Pete Ruccio, our new engineer hero, remixed those records and released them on check those out, because the Deep and Dream of Sleep is definitely a favorite amongst some people. That's actually our best-selling record since the heyday.
Okay.
But Idle Hands is really good, but Masquerade was good, but you know how it is. People want to hear that those first couple records. And again, us touring with Metal Church twice. As a Metal Church fan, I would go out every night to go hear Beyond the Black and Metal Church.
Right.
And they can put out the best record or whatever, but you identify with the early records. But I do think that some of our new stuff is pretty good.
Oh yeah.
But lack of touring. How we go?
There you go. Okay. Well, I mean, Tony, I mean, you've been now in the game for so long, and I mean, is there anything else left that you feel like you want to accomplish with your music? Are there any goals you have, or you simply just doing it because you love it and you're just gonna?
I love it. I mean, Meliah Rage will sell some merch. We have a merch page, and the Kilts Survive shirt sells, and like you said, we'll put something on our Facebook about Kilts Survive or Solitary Solitude, and it'll explode, and we'll put something new up there, and everybody just passes by it. But the Kilts Survive stuff keeps a little income for that. But I just like doing it. I mean, I put Mexican Ape Lord together to write, and I wanted something a little bit more. Meliah Rage is more of a macho, towny, tough guy band, and I wanted John, the singer of Mexican Ape Lord, completely different animal. I mean, everybody in that band is, got the degrees, and they think differently than metalheads per se. And I want to try something different. I'm going to stick with this for a while.
Oh, very cool, man. Well, yeah, I was just going to say, so what's next? I mean, obviously with the pandemic going on, no one knows what's going to go on with live music, but are you still writing for Meliah Rage, and are you going to still write another Mexican Ape Lord record? I mean, what's your future plans that you can think of, right now?
Meliah Rage is on hold for now. We just, the candle hit the water. So we're, never say never, but right now I'm mainly focused on Mexican Ape Lord. It's a good, we work well together. And I like it. I mean, I like John's unique vocals. I like, you're talking about how the survival cannibalism, how people would look at the video and decipher what the lyrics are going to be about. Well, the first record, to this day, I'm scratching my head. What is he talking about? But John's a brilliant guy. I'm telling you, he's brilliant. The wife went to Georgetown. He's not a dumb guy. He's one of those guys, you walk in his house, his living room is nothing but shelves of books and a little TV in the corner that he never watches. He's almost an intellectual. And he's going to come up with something. We got stuff we're working on, and he's going to come up with some stuff.
Great.
Awesome.
So right now we have 3 leftover songs from the first 2 records that we're going to record.
Okay.
Well, the drums are already done. The leftover tracks, I'm going to go do the rhythms and the cleans, and Dan will play, and John's already got the lyrics. So that'll be coming out in the spring. And it's just going to be a little 3-song EP, nothing special. Just throw it out there. And the third Mexican Ape Lord record, I've already got it written. It's done. I'm looking at my little studio off to my left here and just cleaning up stuff. So that'll be out in a year.
Well, yeah, fantastic, man. I'm looking forward to seeing what that new concept is. If it's anything close to survival cannibalism, I think it's going to be just another gem you guys are putting out. And in the meantime, to the listeners, definitely check out Survival Cannibalism, the brand new record from Mexican Ape Lord. And Tony, why don't you just go ahead and I guess let our listeners know where they can find music and merch from the band, and where they can check everything out.
The usual spots: Spotify, YouTube. Our merch site is indiemerch.com. But, you know, just go to the Facebook or whatever. I mean, it's search the internet. That's all you got to do these days. I mean, it's on all the spots.
Okay.
Everything's on YouTube. We don't hide anything. It's there to be heard. We're not here to, we don't care about monetizing. We just want people to hear it. So, you know, some labels will say only put 2 songs on YouTube. We put everything out, let it go.
Nice.
Sure. Awesome. Well, yeah, we definitely look forward to hopefully catching you guys live if and when live music returns. And yeah, and in the meantime, like I said, good luck with everything, Tony. Really appreciate you coming on, and it's a great record. And hopefully we'll get to talk to you again sometime in the future, man.
That would be awesome.
Awesome.
All right, Tony. Thanks, man.
Take care, Tony. Appreciate it. Take it easy.
Take care, guys.
How about take care?
Thanks for listening to Aftershocks. For more episodes, go to our website at www.aftershockspodcast.com. Visit us on our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages for more news and information on the podcast. And be sure to subscribe, listen to, and review all episodes on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all other podcast platforms. For your music listening pleasure, visit our website or go to www.shockwavesradio.com. For all comments and questions, please email us at info@aftershockspodcast.com.
All right, everybody, another great interview right here on Aftershocks TV. And before we go, just want to remind you one more time, make sure you get over and subscribe to the CMS Podcast Network, cmspn.com. You can watch, you can listen, you can subscribe to everything that we do, not only us, but the classic metal shows, Shockwave Skull Sessions, Talk to Me. It's all there, one site, get 4 great shows, never have to do anything again but be entertained. So check it out, cmspn.com, cmspn.com, cmspn.com. Until next time, folks.